The first thing I saw when I came home was my father, standing beside a grocery store dumpster, quietly picking through a cardboard box for something he could carry home. I had been away for 6 years. 6 years of 12-hour shifts. Cheap apartments, instant noodles, missed birthdays, and promises whispered into a phone because I couldn't afford a plane ticket. And now I was finally home. Rich enough to change everything. I stepped out of my black SUV and froze. My father didn't see me. He was 68, thinner than I remembered, wearing the same brown jacket he'd owned since I was a teenager. His hands shook as he pulled a bruised apple from the box. He looked around before putting it into a plastic grocery bag. My chest tightened. "Dad." He turned. The apple slipped from his hand. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then his face crumpled. "Michael." I ran to him. He grabbed me so tightly that I could barely breathe. "My boy," he whispered. "You came home." I held him like I was afraid he might disappear. "I told you I'd come back." He pulled away and looked at my expensive watch, my tailored coat, and the car behind me. "You did well," he said softly. I smiled through tears. I did what I had to do. What I didn't tell him was that I had spent the last 6 years building a technology company from a laptop on a kitchen table. The company had eventually taken off. Investors came. Contracts followed. Then came the acquisition offer. When the deal closed, I became a millionaire almost overnight. But money had never been the reason I worked so hard. My parents were. They had mortgaged their little house to help me start my business. My mother had sold her wedding jewelry. My father had worked construction until his knees gave out. Every time I wanted to quit, my mother said, "Your future is worth more than our comfort." So when I finally had money, I sent it home. At least, I thought I did. Every month, I transferred thousands of dollars to my wife, Emily, telling her, "Make sure Mom and Dad have everything they need." She always answered the same way. "Don't worry. I'm taking care of them." I believed her. That was my mistake. I followed Dad home. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling. The porch sagged. There were cracks in the front steps. I stared at the place and felt confused. "Dad, why didn't you fix this?" He shrugged. "We're fine." "Where's Mom?" His eyes dropped. "She'll be home soon." "From where?" He hesitated. "She cleans houses now." I stared at him. "My mother is cleaning houses." He nodded. "She didn't want you to worry." Something inside me broke. I immediately called Emily. She answered on the third ring. "Michael. You're home. Why are my parents living like this?" Silence. "What do you mean?" "I sent you money every month." "I know." "Then where did it go?" Another silence. Finally, she sighed. "Michael, we had expenses." "What expenses?" "Our house. My car. Taxes. Investments." I laughed bitterly. "Investments?" "Yes." "For who?" "For us." I looked at my father's cracked kitchen table. Did my parents receive the money I sent? Emily didn't answer. That silence told me everything. I drove straight home. Emily was sitting in the living room when I arrived. She looked perfectly comfortable. Designer clothes. Expensive handbag. Diamond bracelet. A new television. Everything suddenly looked different. "Where is the money?" I asked. She stood. "What are you talking about?" "The money I sent for my parents." She folded her arms. "I used it. For 6 years." "Yes. You let my mother clean houses while you spent their money." Her expression hardened. "Don't make me the villain. You were obsessed with helping them." I had to think about our future. Our future. Yes. I stared at her. I missed 6 years of my parents' lives because I believed you were taking care of them. You were working, she snapped. Someone had to manage the money. You didn't manage it. You weren't here. That sentence hit harder than anything else. She was right. I wasn't there. And while I was building a future for my parents, someone else had quietly stolen their present. The next morning, I went back to their house. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table. She looked exhausted. When she saw me, she smiled. Don't be angry with Emily. I sat beside her. Mom, she took the money I sent. I know. I stared at her. You knew. She nodded. Your father found out last year. Why didn't you tell me? She reached for my hand. Because you were finally succeeding. Tears filled my eyes. You should have told me. We didn't want to become another burden. I looked at her trembling fingers. You're my parents. You're not a burden. She smiled sadly. We knew you were building something important. That was when I realized something. My parents had spent their entire lives sacrificing for me. And even when they were hurting, they were still protecting me from the truth. I couldn't accept it anymore. I took them to the bank. We opened new accounts. I paid every overdue bill. I repaired the house. I hired someone to help Mom with cleaning. Then I did something my father never expected. I bought back the small piece of land he'd sold years earlier to pay my college tuition. When I placed the deed in his hands, he stared at it. You bought this. I bought it back. He shook his head. Michael, this is too much. I smiled. No. You gave me everything when I had nothing. This is still not enough. He started crying. So did I. But the story didn't end there. Because 3 months later, I received a letter. It was from Emily's attorney. She wanted half of everything. The company. The money. The properties. She claimed she had supported me throughout my journey. For the first time, I wasn't angry. I was simply tired. I could have destroyed her. I had enough money to make her life miserable. Instead, I hired an excellent attorney and made one request. Protect what belongs to my parents. During the legal proceedings, we discovered something unexpected. Emily had secretly transferred part of the money into an investment account under her name. But that account had grown substantially. The court ordered her to return what she had taken. She lost the house. She lost the luxury car. She lost the lifestyle she had built with someone else's sacrifice. But I didn't celebrate. Because revenge couldn't give me back the 6 years I'd lost. One evening, I visited my parents. Dad was sitting on the porch, watching the sunset. Mom brought out 3 cups of tea. You look happier, Dad said. I am. Why? I looked at them. Because I'm finally home. He smiled. Your company needs you. They can survive without me for a weekend. Mom laughed. You've changed. I nodded. I finally learned something. What? I looked at my father. Being rich isn't having enough money to buy anything you want. Then I looked at my mother. It's having people you love who still want you around when you have nothing to give them. My father reached over and squeezed my shoulder. You always had that. I smiled. Maybe. I just took too long to understand it. That night, I stayed for dinner. Nothing fancy. Soup. Bread. Old family stories. My mother laughed so hard she nearly spilled her tea. Dad complained about the weather. And for the first time in 6 years, I wasn't thinking about business deals, investments, or bank accounts. I was simply their son. Before I left, Dad stopped me at the door. Michael. Yeah. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. We never needed your money. I smiled. I know. We just needed you to come home. I hugged him. I know that now. As I drove away, I looked at the little house glowing behind me. I had returned home believing I was bringing my parents wealth. But they gave me something far more valuable. They reminded me that kindness isn't measured by how much we can afford to give. It's measured by how much of ourselves we're willing to give. And sometimes, the people who love us most don't need our money at all. They just need us to come home before it's too late.